You are Sint Maarten. You are Sint Maarten.
The URSM, the Unified Resilient Sint Maarten Movement, being a political movement, will be hosting a weekly radio program called You Are Sint Maarten, every Wednesday from 6 to 7 p.m. on the Radio Mix 94.7 FM. I myself, Dr. Messalina, the political leader of URSM, will be hosting this radio program in which current issues, actualities and general topics will be discussed with the people of Sint Maarten. So join us every Wednesday on Radio Mix 94.7 for our radio show You Are Sint Maarten.
You are Sint Maarten. You are Sint Maarten.
Dear people of Sint Maarten, good evening. Welcome to your radio program You Are Sint Maarten on Radio Mix 94.7 FM. I myself, Dr. Messalina, will be your host in this radio program. As you know, I'm the surgeon in Sint Maarten, serving the people of this country as a surgeon since 1999. And now I'm also the political leader of the URSM, the Unified Resilient Sint Maarten Movement, that will contest the upcoming parliamentary elections for country Sint Maarten. As you know, URSM stands for putting the people and, of course, the country above self and believe in educating and informing the people of this country. We from the URSM strongly believe that we should have a good balance between economic growth and the welfare in society. We are presenting on a weekly basis a program in which current topics, community developments and issues, and general matters concerning the people of Sint Maarten are discussed. Today we have a very special person as invitee in our program. Today I decided as the leader of the URSM to invite a very known personality in our community in the name of Mrs. Claire Elshot. Mrs. Elshot has been a teacher for many years in Sint Maarten, educating a lot of kids here in Sint Maarten, for which we are very grateful. But also Mrs. Elshot has been a pioneer in the field of the unions for country Sint Maarten. She has been, for example, for many years the president of the Y2, the Windward Island Teacher Union, and until now she is still the president of the YCLU, the Windward Island Chamber of Labor Unions. Next to that, Mr. Elshot is, of course, on board with the URSM because Dr. Messalina, the leader, is, of course, looking for great people with a good love and great intention for the country, and I'm proud to say this. But last but not least, Mrs. Elshot has always been a person with a soft spot, a weak spot in her heart for the less fortunate, for the less privileged, for the poor, and also she had always have a sensitive eye for injustice in our community. And also, lately, we see that Mrs. Elshot is more and more involved in her concern for the elderly, for the seniors of this community. Hence today, I decided to invite Mrs. Elshot for us to have a discussion, especially on the socio-economic challenges that is confronting the seniors in our community. Mrs. Elshot, for me it's a great honor and a great pleasure to have you in my program. Good evening.
Good evening, Dr. Messalina. And for me, it is also an honor to be a part of this program and basically share the vision, our concern, challenges, and also the responsibility of bringing certain awareness and solutions to the forefront. So thank you once more for inviting me, and I'm very honored to be here.
Thank you, Mrs. Elshot. Mrs. Elshot, of course, you're a very known person in our community, but still, I would like for you to make use of this opportunity to use your biography as a background context to introduce yourself. Who is now this Mrs. Claire Elshot?
Well, Mrs. Claire Elshot is a Sint Maartener. As I would say, born on French Sint Maarten. After 3 days, crossed the border into the Dutch Sint Maarten. I've been educated in Philipsburg at the St. Joseph School, and after completing my MAVO education in Sint Maarten. At that time, to be quite honest, we did not have HAVO as yet. So I got on board of ALM and I went to Curacao to actually pursue what I had as my ambition and my dream from a little young girl, instilled in me actually by my father and later by my aunt, Yvette Fleming, to become a teacher. And while in Curacao, my heart went out to especially children with learning problems and disabilities. So after becoming a regular full qualified teacher at age 22, I went on and prepared myself with the course of in Curacao of special ed, and I became a special ed teacher. I returned to Sint Maarten in 1988 to take up active duty as a remedial teacher at the public schools and for the island government of Sint Maarten, and also I had 2 days in the Catholic schools. But as a remedial teacher, sitting at one of the public schools, I actually realized that there was something wrong in Sint Maarten. What was wrong? You see, parents were being turned away with tears in their eyes and asking for a space for their children. They would not be able to get a space because everything was full. No new public schools were being built. And then at a given point in time, we had a number of children on this island that were not attending school. Now, that was a strange phenomenon for me because I was brought up, I was the second of 9 on the side of my mother and many on the side of my father, because my father being Daniel Bobotui, he had a number of children. We all knew each other, but there was a number of, children here in this island, and I was never a day deprived of the opportunity of going to school. So there is where I started back in Sint Maarten to, get some children in the afternoon. So after my regular job, in the afternoon, I would stay over, and all those children that didn't have an opportunity at that time, I would give them classes in the afternoon until they were able even to integrate in the morning sessions. And saying that, I can remember I discovered that on the back street in Philipsburg, Sint Maarten had a house with 4 boys. And those 4 boys were just in that house peeping out and never went to school. So I went and I boldly knocked on the door and I threatened the father that if he did not send them to school by me in the afternoon, and it wasn't about money at that time, if he didn't send them, I would call the police for him. The man didn't know me, but I'm so happy that these children are big children today. So there you can see already that is what led in 2001 for me to have also a structural school that would then be the ACE Foundation, All Children's Education, and a number of children have passed through that school. In the meantime, also being back in Sint Maarten, I noticed that something was not only wrong with the children in the system, but the teachers.
The teachers.
And their rights. Their pay wasn't song and right. Comparing to a teacher, me, that just came from Curacao, something wasn't really right. And
you're talking already from the years 1990, I think.
In the 90s,
yes, beginning of the 90s. Yeah.
Because I came back to Sint Maarten and started to work in August of 1988. Yep. And basically, I couldn't find a teachers' union and to be a member of. And actually in Curacao, you leave and you sign your contract at your employer and you sign your membership form one time. So I was a member of the CITEC Union, Teachers Union, from day one. At age 22, I was always a member.
Very strong union
Yes,
in Curaçao.
a very
The
strong
time of
union.
Mr. Kova, Errol Kova.
Yes, Errol Kova.
Of course.
And being a member of that, when I came here, I found that there was something was wrong. So the campaign to revitalize the union, one of the persons that was very instrumental is now our Minister of Education, and that was Dr. Anders Rudolph Samuel. He was very instrumental with a few other persons, but after they got the union restarted, then it looked as if it went into dormancy again. So in 1994, when they organized what you call a general membership to look for a president, I can remember I postulated myself and I ran as against Mr. Julian Lynch. For the presidency. We had to do a second round, like the French side, a second round, and there I emerged as president of the Windward Islands Teachers Union with one vote over Mr.
Incredible.
Julian Lynch. But from that interception, I decided I would not want to see the Teachers Union go through dormancy again, and I started my journey in representing the teachers at that time in Sint Maarten, Sabre, and St. Eustatius. So I really had a hectic and a long working hours, etc., but I did it with a lot of pride. And then going forward, one of the things that I make sure, I went several times to Curaçao to the pension fund. Because I kept seeing some discrepancies. Here in Sint Maarten, we had a different work group makeup of teachers compared to Curaçao. Curaçao and Aruba, which over the time you also foster a good working relationship. You know, Mr. Kova became my mentor, and Aruba also, Harry Oplat, that just passed away, I think, a year ago. He was also the president at that time. And you learn a lot. So I went straight into, going into the pension fund, and I'm saying, listen, the ordinance is saying that you have to be of Dutch nationality to be part of the fund. But we in Sint Maarten, we have a problem because we have a lot of teachers that are not of Dutch nationality, and it would take them a while to become of Dutch nationality.
And you're going to lose those years.
Yeah, I said these teachers were recruited by our government. And do you think our government went to Barbados, for example, to recruit teachers because of their vision of introducing English as the language of instruction? And after these teachers finish, do you think, because right now we have teachers from Guyana, Jamaica, from the diaspora of the Caribbean, do you think it is realistic after they finish serve in Sint Maarten and educate our youth that they have to go back to their country at a pensionable age and say, here I am, can I have something to live off of? And then when their country look and say, but where did you give your service? And they say Sint Maarten, they would say, go back to Sint Maarten and look for it. So at that time, all of these things that I analyzed, I was very happy when I could have gotten at that time, APNA, the General Pension Fund of the Netherlands Antilles, to come to Sint Maarten to give information sessions, first of all, bring the awareness, and then that the lawmakers change and scrap the Dutch nationality. They made a number of changes, and one of the changes was the implementation of the mandatory pension to be a member mandatory as of the 1st of January 1998.
For all teachers.
Yes, not teachers, civil servants, mandatory in that fund. So that was like 4 years after I started my tenure. I saw that in 1998 it became mandatory. So everyone that comes in service, once they have more than 6 months, they have to be enrolled in this pension fund. So I mean, a number of persons, when they heard certain things of the plan, they didn't want to be part of the plan, but today, I believe a lot of people would not regret being part of that plan, especially if they had to depend as a senior on the SVB social, well, now it's SZV in St. Maarten, social pension alone to live. So, Doc, within that, I also was very vocal. So I became the president. I continue to be president of the Teachers Union for almost 28 years. And going into that, I also had a number of students, children, that passed through my hands, whether they were speaking patois, from any Haitian descendants or Spanish, or even from the Caribbean, the wider Caribbean, that they passed through. And I'm proud today to see them as young, active members. Some of them remain on Sint Maarten, but some of them went to the U.S., others went to Holland, but they are young, active members in the community. And I'm asking myself as an advocate, what would have become of these children if they did not get the opportunity to an education? So, right now, based on international laws, you would see Sint Maarten, we are celebrating International Children's Day. Children's rights are being spoken about. But back when I came home in 1988, it was, for me, a strange phenomenon to see the amount of children that weren't in school, and then slowly but surely the amount of schools that were not subsidized by the government that started to mushroom, with people sometimes not being even readily teachers. They started to mushroom and start to provide this for the children.
Fantastic.
Now I reach to the point where I am at an age of pension.
We will come on that.
Pensioner.
We
Okay.
are going to. But your introduction is fantastic.
Yes.
Mrs. Elshot, I have to recognize your achievements as a union leader for what you have told us just now with your big achievements, for example, for the pension regulation, for the civil service, especially for the teachers that have been working for years in Sint Maarten. We are very grateful for what you have done for the unions. But next to that, being the president for many years of the Y2, you are also the president of the WICLU, the Windward Island Chamber of Labor Unions. What you are still
I
the
am a today,
president.
yes.
Can you tell us a little about this WICLU, what it exactly entails?
Well, historically, there were 3 or 4 presidents that came together back then, and we decided, because at that time there were a lot of pressure also on the unions in giving up certain benefits for the people, like we are experiencing now, cuts. In those days, because of the problems in the Netherlands, Antilles, financial problems, there were all kind of cuts that were being introduced. So at one point in time, we had to give up our vacation allowance, which we regained back. There were a number of cuts. It was also a 10% Crisisheffing. That was on the cabinet of Marielle Iberia Peters. But these were measures that were being, of course, forced onto us. And these structural adjustment programs that were being forced onto us by the mother country, Holland, via sending us through to the IMF. And basically, we came together, Mr. Theophilus Thompson, the late Patricia Pantoflet.
Pantoflet, of course.
She was the president of the WICSU at that time. We had Eldridge van Putten. He was the president of an organization that he called ILS 2000. And myself, we came together and founded the Windward Island Chamber of Labor Union to be able to champion as an umbrella organization the cause of the workers in general. So instead of having the whole fragmentation of, okay, you are civil servants, so you're going for civil servants, you are teachers, you're going for teachers, and we are private sectors, we came together, formed this umbrella organization, because if you know, in Curaçao had Cámara Sindical, and they had a next other of Fac Centrale, as they would call it, a central of unions.
In the
They
time
had to-
from Onaqui.
Yes.
course.
So at that time, you also would, have a strong voice. And within the Netherlands Antilles and the whole financial woes that were going on at that time, we were being invited to Curacao to discuss a number of things that they wanted to introduce and laws, amendments that they wanted to make to the rights and benefits of the workers. So the chamber started with the first president being Mrs. Patricia Pantoflet. It is a rotating chair. So the second president, after a while, was Mr. Theophilus Thompson. Then it was my turn as a third. Regrettable, ILS 2000 never got the opportunity to be a part of the chairing part of the chamber. We had a lot of fruitful discussions, yes. And then we were then joined by the Sint Maarten Communication Union under Mr. Bladen. At that time, he also, unfortunately, he passed, Mr. Bladen, Kenneth Bladen. And with that, we started, the strong advocate of a number of things, and also we start to talk about the challenges the workers are facing in certain areas. We also spoke about a lot of the international labor conventions, and basically the rights of people. And that is how, for example, equal pay for equal work became a right once several court cases were won on Curacao. We claimed jurisprudence here in Sint Maarten, and the workers were able to get pay back in the 1990 something, late 90s. They got payback retroactive to 1967 and 76 and 82. It all depends when you started, etc. But the concept of equal work for equal pay is an ILO convention that was challenged by a lady from Statia, Ines Shaw, and it was won on the island of Statia. And then from there, Curacao also, the CITEC and different unions also challenged it. So basically, as Windward Island Chamber of Labor Union, since the chair rotates, this is my turn, which I feel they extended right now, but I'm still the president.
Okay. That means the WICLU, the Windward Island Chamber of Labor Unions, actually, due to their consolidation as the umbrella of the other unions, made also that at a certain moment one language could be spoken when it concerned general interest of all the workers in Sint Maarten.
In the meantime, I should add that the Windward Island Healthcare Association was first represented by unions in Curacao, CBV, and things like that. And when they had an issue here at the Sint Maarten Medical Center, of course, you had to wait on ALM to bring the president here, sometimes a delayed flight. But in the meantime, we said to them, why don't you form your own organization on the island? And that's how Mr. Julian Lynch, who was my vice president, became the president of that organization once they make that very, decision. And then we are also joined now by APFO Sint Maarten and NAPB, the police union, yes, with Mr. Rogerel Mauricio as president, and the APFO Sint Maarten has Mr. Shalon Catalina as president. We are all now joined in the chamber, so it is.
And also you mentioned the communication union of Mr. now the president being Mr. Lutsen Everts, of course, yes. Mrs. Elshot, we are discussing something very interesting here about the whole evolution of the union in Sint Maarten. And unfortunately, time is running on us. We are going to take a small break and we will be back in a few minutes. Dear people of Sint Maarten, welcome back to our radio program, You Are Sint Maarten. As been said before, today we have with us as a special guest Mrs. Claire Elshot, In the first half of our program, we spoke about her career, her biography, and also the evolution of the union in country Sint Maarten. In the second half of this program, I would like to touch base with Mrs. Elshot on the topic, I think sometimes a sensitive topic about the socio-economic status of our seniors, our elderly in country Sint Maarten. Mrs. Elshot, you are now in the second half of your life. Actually, you are a pensioner here in country Sint Maarten. And you have always fought for the injustice in community. And now you are a pensioner, and now you are also confronting the challenges that our seniors are encountering in country Sint Maarten. Mrs. Elshot, I know because in the introduction I introduced you as a person with a soft spot, a weak spot for injustice, for the less fortunate, and also the elderly, the seniors in our community. And I have to tell you that I'm also very aware about the big challenges and the suffering of the seniors in our community, and the lack of attention of this group in our society is getting in general. Mrs. Elshot, do you think that enough has been done for the elderly, for the pensioners in our country, Sint Maarten?
No, doctor, not enough has been done. And what is being done to our pensioners in Sint Maarten, people that build Sint Maarten, because remember, the pensioners did not just fall out of the sky today for tomorrow. They are the persons that were the active workers of yesterday. So they have built this country. Some of them have worked for 40 or 45 years. And now that they are on pension, it is something to cry or like shame on this. And I am aware that there are different instances that knows their situation. Now, fortunately, I am not speaking of my own situation, because in my situation, and most teachers, not all, teachers, we were able to build up a workers' pension. But we have different sectors in our community, because we have the private sector and we have the public sector. Formerly, persons in the public sector that were not in the pension fund at a certain time, they were able to get an additional, what they would call, uitkering by wijze van pensioen, which means an allowance by means of pension, or they could have gotten for the laborers or understand by wijze van pensioen. Country Sint Maarten put an X through that without evaluating the consequences that would have for certain people. And then just saying, oh, they had time that they could have bought back. That's not the question, and that's not the way it should have gone. It was
But you have victims of this today in Sint Maarten.
Today, we have victims of this, that a rights that they had was just taken away by a certain department, which is personnel affairs in government. It was changed unilaterally without even consulting the legal body, which was the GOA, on this matter. As a matter of fact, it was sent to the GOA as for your information. I keep protesting and say, no, this is not for our, we should be able to have our input and make an advice on it, because it is a matter of, there are some people, when they got into the pension funds, even though they got in before 98, they could not afford to buy back, because the plan at that time was, if you are buying back, the buying back would be solely for your responsibility. So the premium, the amount of buying back, it would be for you. When the pension plan changed in 1998 and became mandatory, the incope, the buying back, was a shared amount between you and your employer. It's the same thing with the premium that they withhold every month. Your employer pays a certain percentage and you pay a certain percentage. So that buying back in 1998 going forward was a shared responsibility between you and your employer. But before that, there were people that just could not afford. And those were the persons that would have gotten either the uitkering, which is the allowance by means of pension, or the stand by means of pension. Okay? Now, in the meantime, those persons had to continue to live only with what they built up. And that would have produced actually that on the stand what would have given them the rights to 50% of what they would have obtained if they were in the pension fund. So, it would have been a little small allowance to be able to carry on together with their pension. Now, that was straight out for a number of persons. The number of persons that suffer that is there. In addition to that, you have persons, for example, that were not here in Sint Maarten at age 15. So that is being deducted from their social pension at SZV, because now I'm speaking of people that would get their normal workers' pension and the SZV pension. That piece of the years would be taken away by the SZV, because in the pension reform, you had, for example, the franchise, which at that time, no union didn't really know how that would work out when you reach 60 or 60 plus. The franchise was then there for the AOV. So what is happening? Now that you're actively on pension, that franchise is being deducted, but with its full implementation from your workers' pension. So let's say SZV is only giving you 750 guilders based on the amount of years that you have been in Sint Maarten, and not the full 1,240. But the pension fund is deducting the full 1,240 from your pension, while when you go to the SZV, you only get in 700. That is an injustice. Then secondly, you have, for example, that persons that are now collecting that, at one point in time they don't have the tax are not deducted from the AOV, but when they declare the tax at the end of the year, that goes on to their workers' pension. So then what happens? It put them in a higher bracket. Now that they are on pension, they have to know at the end, instead of getting back funds, they have to pay additional. A lot of pensioners are complaining they have to, out of their pension, make pay agreements to pay taxes.
Mrs. Elshot, what you're explaining us now, the only way to correct this is amendments in the legislation?
Yes, that's the only way to correct it.
But we know that is the case. I think it's a task for us in Parliament to take the initiative to bring forward the amendments to the law. Otherwise, we're going to continue.
But you see, what happened is, if the parliamentarians aren't sensitive to who are there to speak up for the pensioners. Exactly. A lot of the associations that are senior citizens and pensioners, they are more catering towards the recreational part of the pensioners. Mm-hmm. And basically, when it comes to the rights of the pensioners, you have in the radio program, the weekly radio program of the Sint Maarten Anti-Poverty Platform, myself or Mr. Yisroon would bring forward certain issues. But you have a parliament of young people that don't realize that they're becoming old. Plus, they probably don't realize that the seniors can vote for them too. So they are not basically inclined in making these small changes.
Improving
now,
it.
yes. Now, understand that is from the perspective that I explained, Doc, is from the perspective of people that have two pensions: their workers' pension that they contributed to, and the social pension. But let's look at a person that have social pension alone.
Yes. That's almost nothing.
Even if they get the full, because they were here from age 15, and we have a lot of people that are pensioners, weren't here from the age 15, so they don't get the full. Now, don't you believe that they know the list of who all are not on the full pension, and that something can be done? If that person is not educated by a next person to say, well, go by the social department to get a little envelope, a little complementing social aid, that person continue to suffer. Some of these pensioners are suffering because they don't have, when you're working, you can pay a house rent.
Yep.
They don't have the means to pay a house rent. So I'm coming in to other things that is also working, not only economically, but social housing. I've seen in Curacao, up Caracas Byweg, they have social housing for pensioners that have a good pension. Beautiful housing.
Beautiful.
Why is our pension fund investing their money into the government parking space, into this building, into that building, and not building facilities, housing, developing housing for seniors? Okay, they developed a project just 2 years or so ago for active persons. But when that development was finished, it was so unaffordable for the civil servants and teachers. And then so small. Culturally, we are not accustomed of little small spaces. It doesn't have to be large. But I mean, I would have preferred to give those out to pensioners and then start something brand new for people of the active workforce. Mm-hmm. And it is just a crying shame to see that the monies that are in SZV, you would hear in Parliament, I hear him speaking about taking money for SZV to do this and do that and the other. And I'm listening and I'm saying, people, keep all your hands out of the SVB part, the old people money. Let them develop things that the people can, enjoy. I must commend the White and Yellow Cross because we just saw the extension. It's a new brand extension to the Sint Maarten's home. Beautiful.
Yeah, a good project for
it is
Sint Maarten.
Independent living.
Yep. But
again, there are certain criteria for you to be able to get into there. Why I'm saying that? Because I have my brother there and I admire those rooms. It makes me feel that I should have do some time sharing. I should have built something there, a room there, and then time share it. And now that I become elderly, I can go and take, the concept of time share.
But it should not only be the initiative of the White and Yellow Cross.
No,
the
that's
pension
why
fund could have done that,
that
also
is what
for community
I mean,
of Sint
Doctor.
Maarten. Mrs. Elshot, you mentioned something just now that until now the strongest fund in the SZV is the pension fund of this country. And I agree with you, and I want to accentuate the fact that we are using pension fund money of the people and we are investing it in projects that has nothing to do for the aim of the project. Exactly. For example, something that people will be very shocked with every time I say it is that we are using the ZV, the ziektekosten, the funds to pay for the care of diseases, for sickness. We are using pension fund money every month again to pay the costs in healthcare with. I think that is wrong, so we have to reconsider our position. How are we going to develop a sustainable funding for the healthcare of country Sint Maarten instead of misusing a fund that initially was there just to serve a totally different purpose.
Okay. And Doc, if I may call you Doc.
Yes, of course.
Doc, listen. When we come to the funds of the sickness, if I tell you now what is happening to pensioners. As an active worker, and I have worked for 40 years, whether the Ministry of Education want to recognize that I have 40 years here set up and come to tell me I have 39 years, 11 months and 9 days. I have worked for 40 years, contributed 40 years. And in that 40 years, I have paid in every month it was deducted FZOG. This is not even the normal sickness fund. FZOG, when it was introduced, I was still working in Curacao. It was said to us, this is the funds for the government pensioners. Now, am I not a government pensioner? Yes, I am. Now, from my pension, 10.4% is being deducted for my sickness card, which is far more than what I was paying when I was an active active worker for ZV. 10.4%. So on a monthly basis, if you check all of that, they can come with so much examples of a heart attack and an air ambulance would cost this and what. And when you become a senior, you have a higher bill, etc. And all of that. That is all about, as the Dutch would say, that's baloney. And basically, there are systems out there. We are part of a kingdom, and the highest and the best system is within the kingdom. So why are we not being beneficial? Why are we always on the highest end of whatever development? Why should I have to pay 10.4% for a card? Well, let me knock on wood, because up to now I never had a major health crisis myself. But what I'm saying, even if they never would tell us how many persons they were able to make a saving on, of people that just fell off the chip of the block, passed away, and did not have to pay out their pension. Okay? So the fund should be a healthy fund. Of course, you want to keep it sustainable. So there are a number of changes that have happened. So from the end salary, they gone to a calculation now of the premiums, but over a gemiddelde, as they would say, average. The average, okay? But why must they now delete what we used to call the duurtoeslag? Duurtoeslag that have been granted to all the pensioners all the time. All of a sudden now, that too is being deleted. So you had the understand, which is the allowance by means of, a social aid, and the uitkering fund, that has been deleted. For the Dutch, in those days, we had to recruit a lot of Dutch teachers for our Dutch streams, HAVO, etc. In Holland, the recruitment was taking place in Holland. For our Dutch teachers back then, they used to even get a pensioenvervangende verzekering, because when I became president, that still existed. All the Dutch teachers that would come here, once they are here in service for a number of years, they would get a pensioenvervangende verzekering. That has been phased out. They are piece by piece, they are phasing out certain things, but the burden they are putting on you. I mean, I don't mind having to contribute for my medical, but why such a high 10.4? Why can't I continue to contribute what I was contributing when I was working? The percentage that I was contributing, which was about 7% or 6 point something percent. Why? Why all of a sudden? Because the person becomes a pensioner, you carry up everything. And then my solution is, they have the list of who all have one pension versus all the persons that have a workers and the social pension. The social pension needs to be fixed. You cannot continue to give a person in this community a 500 guilders and expect them as a pensioner to live with that. I don't mind if a the pension, the social pension, is not raised for persons that have two pensions, like myself. I don't mind that. But at this point in time, as you say, I'm always an advocate for injustice. It is unjust. It's injustice. And they have the list and they know everybody's business. So why not fix it for those persons?
Increase for those that only live with their social pension.
Exactly.
Exactly. I believe in that too.
That's a solution that I am going to champion on the next campaign trail. I am going to champion that, because that is a big injustice to send people in Sint Maarten. And then the GB relief for pensioners.
Mrs. Elshot, I'm happy to have a person like you on board with the URSM, advising the URSM. There are so many injustices going on with the elderly, with the pensioners in our country. We have the financial challenges for this group in our community. We have the housing challenge for this group. I'm not even going in the direction of the recreational handicaps in this community for the elderly. And of course, if we talk about the insufficiency of the social pension, for those elderly fighting every day, going from month to month with a small 500 guilders that I think is about $300. Can you imagine? You oblige people to live in the kingdom of the Netherlands with an income of $350.
Shameful.
I think this is a shameful thing that is going on in this country. I realize as a leader of the URSM, the Unified Resilient Sint Maarten movement, that we have a lot of challenges ahead of us and there is a lot to be done. I hope that the people of Sint Maarten will wake up and look at the total picture of this country in the direction that we are heading now, to wake up and please try to make a change. And I do believe that what has recently happened on the French side of our island, seeing a shift to another group, new wind, new people to take over the country, I think that is a translation what is going to happen on the Dutch side of the country too in the upcoming election, because I cannot imagine that the people in this country on the Dutch side are suffering on a daily basis and still in election time will choose to give the same politicians again the mandate to take care of their business. I do believe we have a lot of work ahead of us, and from the URSM we are very aware of that, and actually that has been one of the incentives for us to start with this Unified Resilient Sint Maarten movement, to try to bring on a short term huge basic changes in the injustice system of our country. I hope the country will wake up, and I hope that in the upcoming elections the people will realize that if we want to change tomorrow in Sint Maarten, we will have to change today.
Yes.
Mrs. Elshot,
Definitely.
it has been a great radio program with you in. We have touched base on your biography, we have touched base on evolutions in education, also in the changes that took place in the years with the unions in Sint Maarten. And in the second half of the radio program, we especially deliberated on the issues and insufficiency in the care for our elderly in our community. Mrs. Elshot, I want to give you the last word.
Well, Doc, as I would say, we need a steady leadership to bring about the change, and it is time for change. And therefore, with the development on the northern side, I do hope that the people of the southern side wake up and smell the coffee, and that they would recognize the leadership and the quality of the leadership of URSM, and that basically also that they would work together to make that change. Come together and let's make that change, because there is a lot of work, but structurally, if you take it by structurally developing people, there is no need to continue to keep our seniors into poverty or even continue to brand our poverty level by just, every day it's getting bigger and worse. No, we have to be able to make that change so that people can be self-sufficient, self-reliant, and that people can also take care of themselves and their families.
Mrs. Elshot, wonderful, great words, inspiring us to continue fighting for the injustice in this country and also for the elderly. Ladies and gentlemen, unfortunately, we are at the end of our radio program of today. I welcome you for next week Wednesday again for our next radio program at Radio Mix 94.7 FM. Thank you for your attention and till next week.